On the day my sister was supposed to begin her forever, a single sound tore that dream apart. The crack of a gun echoed through the backyard like thunder splitting the sky, and in the next breath, her veil, white and weightless just moments before, was painted red. 80 guests froze in horror, their gasps colliding into silence, and standing at the edge of it all, clutching a smoking pistol, was the one person who had sworn for months that this day would never happen. Karen Whitmore, our HOA president, our tormentor, the woman who thought control of a neighborhood meant dominion over our lives. My name is Jonathan Reyes. To most of the world, I am Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court, cloaked in robes, wielding words that shape law and order. But that day, none of it mattered. I was not a judge. I was simply a brother, an older brother who had raised Elena from the time she was 10, after a drunk driver took our parents. I had walked her through scraped knees, heartbreaks, and sleepless nights of medical exams. She had grown into a woman who healed others, a pediatric nurse with a laugh so contagious even the sickest children smiled in her care. She was 28, radiant, finally marrying Daniel, the teacher who treated her like she was made of gold. The setting should have been flawless. Willowbrook Gardens, the kind of neighborhood that looks like it's printed on postcards. Picket fences, roses blooming in careful symmetry, manicured lawns that promised safety and serenity. But woven into that picture was a shadow, Karen. She ruled with fines and threats, demanding obedience in the name of community standards. To her, Elena was an intruder. Too young, too Latina, too unwilling to bend her dreams to Karen's rigid vision of perfection. From the first day Elena parked in her own driveway, Karen found reasons to chip away at her joy. A citation for the color of her shutters, a threat over the height of her rose bushes, whispers at board meetings that Elena's presence dragged down property values. It escalated when Elena applied for approval to host her wedding in her backyard. She had submitted every detail: guest list, parking plan, cleanup crews, noise ordinances accounted for. By the book, airtight. Yet Karen denied it, claiming it would disturb the peace. 3 other families, white, established, had been granted their weddings that same year without resistance. Elena's application landed in the trash. I remember the night she called me, her voice small, broken. She had poured her savings into this plan, planting roses with her own hands where she dreamed of saying her vows. Renting a church was impossible now. Every deposit was locked, every option exhausted. For the first time, she doubted the day she had envisioned since childhood. That was when I stepped in. My robe may have meant nothing to Karen, but my title did. I called her directly, introduced myself not as Jonathan the brother, but as Chief Justice Reyes, calm, measured, undeniable. I told her she had no legal grounds to deny my sister's request. 3 days later, Karen's smug smile cracked, and Elena had her approval. Yet beneath Karen's forced compliance, I could sense something simmering. Resentment, hatred wrapped in the language of rules. A storm waiting to break. May 21st dawned like a dream. Elena was awake before the sun, her hair pinned by friends, laughter spilling into the air as music floated through the house. Neighbors who supported her stopped by with flowers. Guests trickled in early to help string lights between the trees. By noon, the backyard was transformed. Rows of white chairs, an arch woven with roses, lanterns swaying gently in the spring breeze. I had seen grand ballrooms and marble halls, but nothing compared to the simple beauty of what Elena created. When I helped her with her veil, I caught my breath. She wore our grandmother's gown, ivory silk, hand-stitched decades ago. The same gown our mother once wore. Elena's eyes sparkled as she whispered, "They're here with us." And in that moment, I swore the air itself carried the presence of those we had lost. Guests arrived in waves, filling every seat. Colleagues, friends, neighbors who had chosen compassion over fear. Even families Elena had nursed back to health sent bouquets, lining the aisle with color. The air buzzed with anticipation, alive with joy. And then I saw her. Karen. From her second-floor window, arms folded, eyes sharp as blades. She did not smile, did not wave. She only watched, like a vulture circling, waiting. My chest tightened. A warning hummed in my veins, but I forced it aside. This was Elena's day. Nothing, not even Karen, would take it from her. As I walked my sister down the aisle, the music rose, Daniel's tears already spilling as he waited at the altar. Elena glowed, every step shimmering with the weight of dreams fulfilled. For a heartbeat, I believed we had triumphed. That Karen's bitterness had been reduced to nothing more than glares from behind glass. But as the pastor spoke, as vows trembled in voices filled with love, I felt the air shift. The gate creaked open at the back of the yard, and there she was, Karen, not at a window, not restrained by distance. She stormed down the aisle, her face twisted with fury, her words already rising like daggers. And in that instant, I knew the storm I had feared had finally broken. The pastor's words hung in the air, soft and reverent. Elena's hand trembled slightly in Daniel's, though her smile never wavered. She was so close to the moment she had dreamed of since childhood. I could hear the rustle of her gown, the sighs of guests dabbing their eyes. And then, before she could whisper the words that would bind her to the man she loved, Karen's voice cut through the ceremony like a blade. I object. Gasps rippled across the chairs. Karen stood at the back gate, her presence sucking the warmth out of the garden like a sudden frost. She was dressed as though for battle, not celebration. Stiff blazer, pearls glinting, eyes burning with venom. She didn't walk, she marched, pushing past rows of stunned guests, her heels stabbing the earth as if each step was an accusation. Her tirade began instantly. Noise ordinances, parking violations, disturbing the peace. Her words were a hurricane of nonsense, each one louder, sharper, until the very air shook with her rage. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm, reminding her in front of every witness that she herself had approved this wedding. But Karen didn't care. This wasn't about ordinances. It never had been. Elena turned toward her, veil shimmering in the sunlight, and whispered the only plea that mattered. Please, it's my wedding day. Can't we just have peace? That word, peace, ignited something terrible in Karen. Her face twisted, her voice dropped to a hiss that slithered across the garden. She spewed words drenched in hate, calling us intruders, mocking Elena's heritage, spitting venom about you people destroying what she called her neighborhood. Each syllable was poison, each phrase meant to wound deeper than the last. Guests shifted uneasily, torn between shock and fury, but before anyone could act, Karen's hand moved. From behind her back, glinting in the afternoon sun, came the shape of a gun. The world froze. For a split second, silence wrapped the garden, so heavy it pressed against my chest. Then chaos erupted. Screams tore through the air. Chairs clattered as guests dove to the ground. Children cried out in fear. Daniel instinctively wrapped himself around Elena, shielding her with his body.
Father Miguel raised his hands, pleading for calm.
I reached for my phone, dialing 911 with fingers that trembled against the screen. And yet, in the eye of that storm, Elena stood tall. Her voice, gentle, steady, the same voice she used with terrified patience, rose above the noise. She spoke not with fear, but with compassion. Karen, I know you're hurting. We don't have to be enemies. We can be neighbors. We can find peace. Her words should have been a lifeline, a chance for humanity to break through. But Karen's face only contorted further, her voice cracking as she snarled, I don't want your peace. I want you gone. Then the gun fired. The sound was deafening, ripping through the air, through the vows, through the laughter and love that had filled that garden only moments before. Elena staggered, her eyes wide, her mouth forming a silent word. Then she collapsed, her gown folding beneath her, white fabric blooming red. Daniel screamed, falling beside her, his hands trembling as he tried to stop the bleeding. Guests rushed forward but stopped short, paralyzed by the sight of Karen still gripping the weapon. I dropped to my knees, pressing my hands against my sister's wound, whispering desperately, Stay with me. Please stay with me. Her eyes, so full of light just moments earlier, searched mine. Tears pooled, her lips quivered, and in a voice so soft I almost didn't hear, she said, Jonathan. I love you. And then her gaze faded. The spark that made her Elena slipped away, leaving only stillness in my arms. I have presided over trials where lives hung in the balance, where justice was measured in scales and laws. But nothing could prepare me for that moment. Rage and grief warred in my chest, but above it all, a crushing guilt. I had promised our mother I would protect Elena. I had promised myself I would shield her from every cruelty this world could muster. Yet there I was, a Chief Justice, powerless against the hatred of one woman with a gun. As sirens wailed in the distance and officers wrestled Karen to the ground, I held Elena, my hands slick with her blood, whispering words she could no longer hear. My sister was gone. Her wedding, her future, stolen in a heartbeat. And in the hollow space where her laughter once lived, one question echoed louder than all the others. Why hadn't I stopped Karen sooner? The trial was swift, the evidence undeniable. Karen sat in the defendant's chair, no longer the tyrant of our neighborhood, just a bitter woman stripped of her crown. The jury's faces hardened with every testimony, the pastor's trembling recount, Daniel's broken words, my own voice cracking as I described holding my sister in my arms. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, the gavel struck like thunder. Karen would never walk free again. But no sentence could bring Elena back. Justice, in the cold language of law, felt hollow. Because the wound she left in us could never heal. Daniel never remarried. Every year on their would-be anniversary, he leaves roses at the garden where she fell. I visit too, but I never stay long. The silence is too heavy, the memories too sharp. People say time dulls pain, but they are wrong. Time doesn't dull it. It carves it deeper, etching it into your bones until you carry it everywhere. My sister's laugh, her light, her dreams, all of it stolen in a single act of hate. And so I tell this story, not just to remember her, but to remind you of the cost of silence. We saw Karen's cruelty for years. We whispered about it, we endured it, and in our quiet endurance, we let her power grow, until it consumed everything. Elena's story is not just mine. It belongs to every neighbor, every community, every person who has turned away from a bully because it was easier than standing tall. Please don't wait until the day it's too late, because sometimes the price of silence is someone you love. If this story moved you, share it, so Elena's memory can live on. And maybe, just maybe, her loss can be a warning that saves someone else. And if you want more stories that reveal the hidden cost of silence and the truth about human nature, subscribe. More stories like this are coming.